Here to talk more about it, Republican strategist Boyd Matheson, former chief of staff for Utah Senator Mike Lee and host of Inside Sources on KSL. Boyd, good morning to you. Let's start with Pence. He's dropped out. Are you surprised at the timing of this? So far away, it seems, from even the Iowa caucus?
Yeah, I think one of the things about the former vice president, he is a pragmatist, and I think he recognized the path just wasn't opening up. The lane that he was hoping to be able to take as a path to get the nomination just wasn't emerging. So I do commend him for that. It's always one of the things that I would ask in Washington, D.C. of potential candidates, always looking for endorsements. I'd always ask them the question, what makes all of this worth it, even if you run and lose? And I even asked that of the former vice president as he began this campaign for the presidency. And he talked about principle and honor and duty, not an outcome. And so for him, I think that's what made it worth it. It also made it easier for him to be very at peace with the decision to say, it's not my time. It's an opportunity to move forward for the country. I would also just note, Marni, one of the things about the former vice president, it's often said that if you're really lucky in life, you might get one line or maybe two in the history books. And Mike Pence will clearly have a line in the history books. After all the atrocities of January the 6th, I think the most significant moment was the moment then Vice President Mike Pence pounded the gavel, called the Senate back into session, the institutions of our constitutional republic held, and the work of the people moved on. And I think that will be his legacy in all of this, that he had the moral character in order to avoid the political side of all of those things and show political courage to uphold the Constitution and do the will of the people.
Does Pence run again, do you think, Boyd?
I don't think so. I think he is one of those that he will find his voice. He will have plenty of places and spaces to make his mark. And I think where you will see the former vice president go, Marni, is on this whole idea of principle and policy. I think he'll try to help continue to move the Republican Party in particular away from grievance politics, away from this populism unhinged from principle, and move towards good governance and good policy. When the Republican Party starts with principle, then policy, they tend to do very well. When they do this grievance and political stuff, it never ends well for the Republicans.
How does Pence's departure impact the others running? Who gets the momentum from that?
So I think it's very interesting, and you noted this morning at the top that that Nikki Haley seems to be the one who seems to be gathering momentum as things go, and I think that's a combination. I think it's both the principles. I also think it's very clear that the incidents that are happening in the rest of the world are clearly sharpening the focus of this campaign, and clearly with everything you've been covering this morning as it relates to Israel and Gaza, the Middle East, along with what's going on in Ukraine, Russia, China, and Taiwan, there's clearly been an international focus. And who do you want behind the desk in the Oval Office making big decisions that impact world peace and ultimately impact us here at home? Nikki Haley is definitely the beneficiary of that dialogue and that conversation. And I think some of those Pence voters will probably swing more towards Nikki Haley than they might for Governor DeSantis or a Ramaswamy or even a Chris Christie.
We're about a week away from the next GOP debate. This one will be in Miami. What do you expect from Nikki Haley and the others as they take to the debate stage, minus Pence? And do you think Trump shows up for this one?
I don't think the former president will show up. He's continuing to take the strategy of he's got a lead, so he's just going to stay away. It's always kind of the strategy in politics. And there's a difference between winning political campaigns and actually governing and leading. So I think what you look for in this next debate, Marni, is it will be a very small stage. You could have as few as 4 and maybe even 3. I'm hearing some chatter that Mr. Ramaswamy may even take a pass on the next debate. So if you have a small debate stage, that gets an opportunity to go beyond just the bullet points and the talking points kind of chatter and actually get into some real substance. And so I think that will be an opportunity for Chris Christie, for Nikki Haley, and for Governor DeSantis to really have to dig in and show that they can talk beyond the talking points and the 30-second soundbite answers and really get into a substantive conversation. And again, we're only about 80 days away from the Iowa caucus, so I think it will be an important debate for each of those that are remaining to make their case in front of the American people.
Dean Phillipss, the Democrat from Minnesota, has now entered the race. He would like to challenge President Biden for the Democratic nomination. What do you make of his announcement in the last few days, and how does that impact things for that party going forward?
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot on the Democratic side that are none too happy with this because the representative is clearly making the case that it's time for a change in Washington, D.C. He's calling out a lot of the things that, of course, the Republicans will call out with the current president. And so I'm sure there's a lot of angst and frustration amongst the Democrats. But it will be interesting to see how the Biden campaign, not the Oval Office, but the campaign will respond to this.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.